Have you ever watched someone destroy everything through sheer greed and delusion of power? This is the story of how a CEO's son's seemingly harmless bonus request triggered a domino effect, turning into a $45 million collapse, and I, the one pushed to the margins, used his very arrogance to bring him down, in silence. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or dramatic, it's watching someone's hubris become the architect of their own destruction. While you quietly hold the blueprint. My name is Hannah Miller, and for 12 years, I built my career at Westbourne Dynamics, brick by brick, strategy by strategy. At 38, I'd earned my place as senior strategy consultant through countless nights refining market analyses, crafting expansion blueprints that opened 3 new revenue streams, and navigating the company through 2 major acquisitions. My office on the 14th floor wasn't corner suite prestigious, but it had a view of the city that reminded me why I loved this work, seeing patterns in chaos, finding paths through complexity. That Tuesday morning in March changed everything. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Margaret from HR knocked on my door, her smile too bright for comfort. "Hannah, exciting news. We have a new director of strategic initiatives joining us today. The CEO wants you to help him get oriented." Him, Logan Pierce, 29 years old, fresh MBA from Wharton, and most importantly, son of our CEO, Richard Pierce. I'd seen his type before, the ones who confused birthright with expertise, who believed their last names were qualifications, but I'd never had one planted directly in my path like a landmine. Logan strutted into the conference room that afternoon, wearing a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most employees' monthly salaries. His handshake was deliberately firm, the kind that tried to establish dominance rather than connection. "Hannah," he said, drawing out my name like he was tasting wine. "Dad says you're the best we have at strategy. Looking forward to learning from you." The word learning dripped with insincerity. His eyes had already dismissed me, scanning the room as if measuring it for his nameplate. Within his first week, Logan systematically undermined everything I'd built. He scheduled innovation sessions during my established meeting times. He questioned my methodologies in front of junior staff, using buzzwords he'd clearly memorized from TED Talks. "Hannah's approach is solid," he'd say, pausing for effect, "but it lacks the disruptive thinking we need for true market penetration." The breaking point came during Thursday's strategy review. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing a comprehensive analysis of emerging markets in Southeast Asia, complete with risk assessments, partnership opportunities, and a 5-year implementation roadmap. 20 minutes into my presentation, Logan interrupted. "This is very academic," he announced, flipping through his phone while speaking. "Where's the inspiration, the vision that makes people want to invest?" He stood up, buttoning his jacket with practiced precision. "Let me show you how Stanford taught us to present strategy." He hijacked my presentation, replacing my data-driven slides with what he called narrative-focused storytelling. Charts became abstract art. Projections transformed into aspirational targets. My carefully researched market analysis was reduced to bullet points that said nothing while sounding profound. "From now on," Logan declared at the meeting's end, "I'll be leading all major client presentations. Hannah, you'll provide back-end support, you know. The technical details I can reference if needed." Back-end support. 12 years reduced to backstage crew for a man who couldn't distinguish between market segmentation and market share without Google's help. Richard Pierce nodded approvingly from his seat. "Excellent initiative. Logan, this is exactly the fresh perspective Westbourne needs." I kept my expression neutral, my hands steady on my laptop keyboard. Inside, something shifted, not breaking, but hardening, like carbon under pressure becoming diamond. I'd worked too hard to be erased by nepotism wrapped in designer suits. That night, I sat in my apartment, laptop open to LinkedIn, watching the cursor blink in the search bar. But I didn't type anything, not yet, because if there's one thing 12 years in corporate strategy teaches you, it's that the best moves aren't made in anger. They're made with precision, with timing, and with complete information. Logan Pierce wanted to play corporate games. He had no idea He'd just started a match with someone who'd been studying the board while he was still in business school. The humiliation came on a Wednesday, in Conference Room A, with its floor-to-ceiling windows that made everything feel like a fishbowl performance. 23 members of my strategic planning team sat around the mahogany table, waiting for the quarterly review I'd been leading for the past 4 years. I'd prepared meticulously a 70-page analysis of our market position, competitor movements, and strategic recommendations for the next quarter. The presentation deck alone had taken 2 weeks to perfect. Logan arrived 15 minutes late, coffee in hand, his assistant trailing behind with what looked like hastily printed handouts. "Sorry, everyone," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Had a breakthrough call with some Silicon Valley contacts, game-changing stuff." He took the seat at the head of the table, my usual seat, and gestured for me to begin. I connected my laptop, pulled up the first slide, and started. This quarter's analysis shows significant opportunities in the healthcare vertical, particularly. "Hold on, Hannah." Logan's voice cut through mine like a dull knife through rope. "Before we dive into the weeds, let's talk big picture, vision, impact." He stood up, walking to the screen where my carefully crafted slide displayed market penetration data. "This is good homework, really solid homework, but it's not leadership material." The room went silent. 23 pairs of eyes ping-ponged between us. "See what Hannah's prepared here," he continued, waving dismissively at my screen, "is what I call analysis paralysis, numbers, charts, projections. Where's the story? Where's the thing that makes a client lean forward and say, yes, that's where we need to be?" My junior analyst, Kevin, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Sarah from market research avoided eye contact altogether. They'd seen my work help land 3 major accounts last year alone. Logan clicked to my next slide, a competitive analysis matrix I'd spent days refining. "This, for example, it's so static, so backward-looking." He turned to the room with a practiced smile. "At Stanford, we learned that strategy isn't about where your competitors are, it's about where they can't go." He pulled up his own presentation on his phone, casting it to the screen, overriding mine. Gone were my data points and trend analyses. In their place, stock photos of soaring eagles, mountain peaks, and abstract network diagrams that looked like someone had sneezed on a connect-the-dots puzzle. "This is what I'll be presenting to Helix Core Systems next week," he announced. "Hannah, I'll need you to transpose some of your background data into the appendix, in case someone asks for the boring details." Helix Core Systems, our largest potential client, worth $45 million in recurring revenue. The presentation I'd been crafting for 2 months, now reduced to appendix material. "Actually," Logan continued, his tone shifting to performative concern, "Hannah, why don't you focus on making sure the slide transitions work smoothly? You're good with the technical stuff. I'll handle the strategic narrative and client relationship." Someone coughed, papers shuffled. The air conditioning hummed its white noise sympathy. I kept my face neutral, professional, even as my fingernails dug crescents into my palms under the table. "Of course," I said, my voice steady as a flatline. "I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." Logan clapped his hands together. "Great team. This is what transformation looks like. Sometimes we have to let go of our old ways of doing things. Hannah's been here, 12 years? Sometimes that experience can actually become a limitation. Fresh eyes see fresh opportunities." After the meeting, people filed out quietly, some offering sympathetic glances, others avoiding me entirely. Sarah lingered, pretending to organize her notes. "Hannah, your analysis was—" "It's fine, Sarah," I said, packing up my laptop with practiced efficiency. "Really." But it wasn't fine. As I walked back to my office, I passed the wall of awards and recognitions. My name featured on 3 of them: Strategic Excellence 2019, Innovation in Market Analysis 2021, Team Leadership Award 2022. Apparently, 12 years of excellence had just been reframed as obsolescence by a man who probably couldn't calculate ROI without a YouTube tutorial. That evening, I sat in my office as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of corporate gray and burning orange. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, stopping at one name, Melissa Rhodes, Chief Technology Officer, Helix Core Systems. Not yet, I told myself, but soon. Because Logan Pierce had just made a critical strategic error, the kind they apparently didn't teach at Stanford. He'd assumed that making someone invisible meant they couldn't affect the game. He was about to learn that the most dangerous pieces on the board are the ones you stop watching. That Friday evening, I found myself in my apartment's cramped second bedroom that served as a home office, surrounded by boxes I hadn't opened in years. The move from my previous job to Westbourne had been swift, and I'd never fully unpacked everything. Now, with Logan's condescension still ringing in my ears, I needed something a reminder of who I was before corporate politics tried to erase me. The leather notebook was in the third box, wrapped in tissue paper like a relic, brown, worn at the edges, with MR embossed in gold on the cover. Melissa Rhodes had given it to me on my last day at Pinnacle Consulting, where she'd been my mentor before moving to Helix Core. I opened it carefully, the spine crackling with disuse. Her handwriting was as sharp as I remembered, all angles and decisive strokes. The first page still made me smile. Hannah. For your next adventure, remember data tells the truth, but only if you're brave enough to listen. M. I flipped through pages of notes from our sessions together, strategy frameworks, negotiation tactics, but it was a note from our final lunch that stopped me cold. Never let them weaponize your competence against you. When they start calling your thoroughness overthinking and your expertise baggage, they're not critiquing your work, they're clearing space for their mediocrity. Keep your knife sharp. You'll know when to use it. Melissa had written that after watching me get passed over for promotion in favor of a golf buddy's son, she'd left Pinnacle 2 months later for Helix Core, taking 3 major clients with her. I closed the notebook and pulled out my personal laptop, never the company one for things like this. LinkedIn showed Melissa still at Helix Core, now 5 years into her CTO role. Her recent posts were about digital transformation, innovation partnerships, the usual corporate speak, but her last post, from 3 days ago, caught my attention. Real innovation isn't about flashy presentations or buzzword bingo. It's about deep understanding, careful analysis, and the courage to tell clients what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Too many consultants today are selling sizzle without steak. 3 days ago, the day after Logan's innovation session, where he'd publicly dismissed analytical rigor as outdated, I opened my personal email and started typing. Melissa. Found your old notebook today while doing some cleaning. Your words about keeping the knife sharp are particularly relevant. Westbourne is pitching Helix Core next week. You should know the presentation will be heavy on sizzle, the stake market analysis, risk assessments. Implementation frameworks has been relegated to the appendix by our new Director of Strategic Initiatives. I thought you'd want to know what kind of meal you're being served. Coffee sometime, I have a feeling we have catching up to do. H. I hesitated before hitting send. This wasn't quite whistleblowing, but it wasn't exactly loyal either. Then I remembered Logan's words. Sometimes that experience can actually become a limitation. I hit send. The response came within an hour. Interesting timing. We've been concerned about Westbourne's recent pivot toward transformational thinking without substantive backing. Richard Pierce assured me personally that this wouldn't affect the quality of strategic guidance. The presentation is Tuesday at 2 p.m. I'll be asking very specific questions about data sources, methodology, and implementation timelines. I hope someone in the room can answer them. Coffee would be good. Thursday, 1 p.m. The place on Fifth Avenue we used to go. My treat. Bring your sharp knife. I have a feeling I'll need someone who knows how to use one. M. P.S. I still have the analysis you did on healthcare verticals from 2018. It's been my template for evaluating every consultant since. Just thought you should know what standard you set. I read the email twice, then deleted it from my laptop, clearing the cache for good measure. But the message was burned into my memory. Melissa would be in that room Tuesday, She'd be asking the questions Logan couldn't answer, and I'd be there, managing his slide transitions, holding all the data he'd dismissed as boring details. I picked up the notebook again, flipping to a blank page near the back. With a pen I'd kept from my first day at Westbourne, I wrote, March 15th. The knife is sharp, waiting for Tuesday. Then I poured myself a glass of wine, the good bottle I'd been saving, and stood by my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Logan Pierce was probably at a trendy bar, celebrating his conquest of the strategy department with people who laughed at his jokes and validated his brilliance. Let him celebrate. Tuesday was coming, and Melissa Rhodes didn't suffer fools. She certainly didn't pay them $45 million. The knife was sharp indeed, and Logan was about to learn that sometimes the person holding it is the one you relegated to managing your PowerPoint. Tuesday arrived wrapped in spring rain that turned the city into an impressionist painting. I reached the office early, finding the presentation room already set up by Logan's assistant, leather portfolios at each seat, branded water bottles, and a subtle cologne scent that screamed trying too hard. I connected the laptops, tested the screens, and made sure both presentations were loaded. Logan's circus of stock photos and my data-heavy appendix that he'd never bothered to open. The Helix Core team arrived at 1:50 p.m., 10 minutes early. Melissa entered last, her gray suit as sharp as her reputation. Silver hair pulled back in a way that said she meant business. She nodded at me, professional, neutral, giving nothing away. With her were two VPs and their CFO, Marcus Chen, a man known for dissecting proposals with surgical precision. Logan burst in at 2:03, all apologies and charm, his hair still slightly damp from what was probably a long lunch. Traffic was murder, he said, though we all knew his office was 2 floors up. But now that I'm here, let's transform how you think about strategic partnerships. He launched into his presentation with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real scrutiny. The first slide showed a rocket ship. Helix Core isn't just choosing a consultant today, he announced. You're choosing a launchpad for exponential growth. Melissa's face remained unreadable. Marcus Chen was taking notes on a tablet. Logan continued through his slides: the soaring eagles, the mountain peaks, the abstract network diagrams. He used words like synergy and paradigm shift and bleeding-edge innovation with the frequency of someone who'd memorized a TED Talk word cloud. Our proprietary approach, he said, clicking to a slide that showed a circular diagram with arrows pointing everywhere and nowhere, leverages disruptive methodologies to create blue ocean opportunities in your white space. That's when Melissa spoke for the first time. Interesting visual. Can you walk us through the underlying data that supports this model? Logan's smile flickered. Of course. The data shows clear correlation between innovative thinking and market dominance. Which data specifically? Melissa pressed. What sample size? What time frame? What industries? Well, it's more of a holistic view based on multiple touchpoints across various sectors. Logan clicked to the next slide quickly. But let's talk about your future. I'd prefer to understand the foundation first, Marcus Chen interrupted. You mentioned exponential growth. What's your baseline assumption for our current trajectory? And how did you calculate the exponential factor? Logan's hand hovered over the clicker. I saw the micro-expression, the split second of panic before his salesman's smile returned. Hannah actually has all those granular details. Hannah, could you pull up the appendix? I stood, moving to the laptop with practiced calm. Of course, I pulled up my original presentation, the one he'd gutted. The exponential growth model is based on 3 factors. Your current 12% year-over-year growth, the 23% average growth in successful healthcare vertical expansions, and the 31% boost from strategic automation implementation. Page 47 has the full methodology. Melissa leaned forward. Show me page 47. For the next 30 minutes, I walked them through my analysis, the real work Logan had dismissed as backward-looking, market penetration strategies based on actual competitor weaknesses, not inspirational quotes, risk assessments grounded in regulatory realities. not optimistic projections. Implementation timelines that accounted for actual resource constraints, not magical thinking. Logan tried to interject several times with color commentary. What Hannah's showing you is the foundation, but the real value, Melissa cut him off, is understanding exactly what we're buying. Continue, Hannah. When I reached the financial projections, Marcus Chen actually smiled. This matches our internal analysis within a 3% margin. How did you get these numbers? Public filings, industry reports, and a regression analysis of similar expansions in the healthcare space over the past 5 years, I replied. Page 62 has the sources. Logan was sweating now, despite the aggressive air conditioning. His phone buzzed repeatedly, probably his father wondering how the presentation was going. Melissa stood as I finished. Mr. Pierce, one question. This appendix, this is work your team produced. Absolutely, Logan said quickly. We're all about collaboration at Westbourne. I see. She turned to me. Hannah, how long did this analysis take? 2 months, I said, meeting her eyes. I wanted to ensure every assumption was bulletproof. And the slide deck we saw first, the one with the eagles and mountains, how long did that take to produce? Logan answered before I could. Innovation isn't about time, it's about impact. 3 hours, I said quietly. The visual presentation took 3 hours to compile yesterday afternoon. The room went silent except for the rain against the windows. Melissa gathered her things. We'll be in touch. Mr. Pierce? Hannah, thank you for the comprehensive appendix. It's been illuminating. After they left, Logan turned on me. What the hell was that? You completely derailed the narrative. I answered their questions, I said, disconnecting the laptops. With data, isn't that what consultants do? He stormed out, phone already at his ear, probably calling Daddy to complain. I stayed in the empty presentation room, looking at the abandoned leather portfolios and untouched water bottles. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thursday is still on. We have much to discuss, M. The knife had drawn its first blood. Logan just didn't know he was bleeding yet. Thursday's lunch stretched into 3 hours at Café Moderne on 5th Avenue, the same corner table where Melissa had recruited me to Pinnacle 15 years ago. She looked exactly the same silver hair, sharp eyes, no patience for pretense. The only difference was the Patek Philippe on her wrist, a testament to 5 successful years at Helix Corps' helm. Your analysis was brilliant, she said, cutting into her salmon with surgical precision. Logan Pierce, however, is everything wrong with corporate America wrapped in a Tom Ford suit? I sipped my wine, saying nothing. In negotiations, Melissa had taught me, the first person to speak usually loses. She smiled at my silence. Still playing it careful. Good. But let's cut through the dance. Hannah, I'm pulling the Westbourne contract. $45 million. Gone. Richard Pierce will have a coronary. The board will demand answers. And Golden Boy Logan will need to explain how he lost the biggest deal of the quarter. That's unfortunate for Westbourne, I said neutrally. Is it, Melissa leaned back, or is it an opportunity? She pulled out her phone, showing me an organizational chart. I'm building a new strategic innovation division at Helix Corps. Real innovation, not buzzword soup. I need someone who understands that transformation requires foundation, that disruption without direction is just destruction. The number she wrote on her napkin made my poker face crack. That's base salary, she said, plus equity, signing bonus, and performance incentives. Triple what you're making now, I'd guess. It's actually closer to 4 times, I admitted. Even better, but here's what I really want to discuss. She signaled for another bottle of wine. I don't just want you, I want to gut Westbourne's entire strategic capability. Every talented analyst Logan's been dismissing. Every researcher he's relegated to PowerPoint duty. Every innovative mind he's suffocated with his MBA bromides. That's aggressive, I said. That's business. Logan Pierce treated strategy like a costume party. His father enabled it. They both need to learn that talent isn't inherited. It's earned, and when you disrespect it, it walks out the door. She slid a folder across the table. Your offer letter. Sign it today. Start in 2 weeks. But first, tell me who else at Westbourne deserves better. I thought about Sarah from market research. Brilliant but overlooked. Kevin, my junior analyst, who Logan had called too detail-oriented, like it was an insult.